The World Finals got over this weekend over at the Charlotte Motor Speedway dirt track, marking the end of National Touring Sprint Car Racing in 2025. Rico Abreu able to get a win on Thursday night at the dirt track at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The next night, it was David Gravel passing Rico Abreu with 2 laps to go to take down the win. And then on the final night, David Gravel leading the feature over there, gets spun around in turn 1, backs it in the wall, allowing Buddy Kofoid to go on and get the win. A couple of really good runs, some good nights as well for some of the high rollers that were out there at the dirt track at Charlotte Motor Speedway. We got to see the debut of Dason Pursley behind the wheel of the Casey Kane Racing number 9. Had a couple of solid runs there. Speaking of number 9, Chase Randall and his number 9 R car were very fast over the weekend at Charlotte with 2 top 5 runs for the quickest chicken to finish off his 2025 campaign. Cy Lynch, another one of our Rookie of the Year contenders from this year, was quick time for both the Thursday and the Friday night program of the World Finals. So that was awesome to see as well for the driver out of Apollo, Pennsylvania. Danny Sams had some good runs. Brett Marks led some laps. It was a great weekend for the high rollers with the Outlaws. And once again, congrats to David Gravel, who wrapped up his second career World of Outlaws championship over there in dominating fashion over Buddy Kofoid and Carson Macedo, the top 3 in the Outlaw point standings this year. Another guy that was over there making his debut in his new ride was Tanner Holmes. Had a couple of solid moments throughout the weekend. And this week here on the High Limit Room, we're able to catch up with him and talk about his upcoming plans for 2026 as a high roller with High Limit Racing. Well, we are now joined by the newest high roller with High Limit Racing for 2026. Tanner Holmes, welcome to the High Limit Room, not only the podcast, of course, but with the series as well. I know that's a pretty good intro. Tanner, you guys just ran World Finals in the Buick Motorsports 13 this weekend, getting your guys' stuff accolade. You've already got the T-shirt on, so yeah, that's a good start. You got the right shirt on, but how are things going so far? And it's probably been a pretty crazy last week and a half for you.
Yeah, just so much has changed for me, right? I wasn't really sure what my 2026 was going to look like. And then, within 24 hours of not knowing, all of a sudden everything was kind of set in stone. So it was nice to get to go to Charlotte. We didn't necessarily have like the weekend we were hoping for, but just kind of got behind on Wednesday. And then from there, you're kind of playing catch up. But it was just a nice chance for us to, run some laps, kind of start working together, feel out the race car. Obviously, these guys have a completely different, combination than what I'm used to with my family car, what I ran with the 21 guys this season. So now I'm just here in Pennsylvania and spending some time with the team at the shop and getting fitted and just kind of getting everything properly prepared. Obviously I'm the other side of the country, so this was a good chance for me just to come up here, get my seat in all the cars as they're kind of getting things built and prepared for what's going to be a really big schedule I think we're going to have in 26.
Tanner, I'd love to hear more kind of what goes into these silly season moves that see drivers move around from car to car and team to team. Of course, everybody's kind of willing to share a little bit of a different amount of the business side of things. And I understand, I guess what I'm asking is share as much as you're willing to, but you just talked about how things came together kind of quickly. And if I remember correctly, your deal to fill in for Jacob in the 1A, Bobby Allen and you had a very brief discussion, and it was pretty much decided that you'd be in that car. So, what are you willing to share about how these kind of deals go down and how you're approached and what goes into teaming up for a full season with a program like Buick Motorsports?
Yeah, so pretty much, the whole Bobby thing, that was a quick deal. And then this was kind of the same thing almost. So I was going into 2026, kind of actually planning, whether I was going to still race with Tarleton a little bit. Maybe we would split time with their car and my car like we did again. I just really enjoyed racing with them. And they're such a good regional program, Again, there's not really the opportunity there to go on the road necessarily, but I could have ran some great races with them. I was also looking into building up just, hey, do I go 100% in on my family car so I'm in the same car all year? At the same time, I was kind of trying to keep my name in the hat of different, opportunities. And I knew the 13 was kind of coming available, before it was actually posted, of course. And Tom actually had reached out to me about, I don't know, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, early October. And it was funny. It was just a Facebook message. And I remember I was in a Planet Fitness and I opened my phone and it was Tom Book was just a Facebook message. And I responded to him, obviously, that I would be interested, but it wasn't anything like, hey, like if you want the spot, you're our guy or anything. So I just responded like, we just went back and forth for a second and I didn't think anything of it. And a couple weeks had went by and honestly, I hadn't really heard anything. So I kind of actually thought, man, they probably have a list of drivers, right? And this and that. And I kind of checked in, but like I said, I hadn't heard much. So, then yeah, basically the day before I announced the ride, Tom had called me that morning and we talked for, the crew chief, Sean, had called me. We talked for 10 minutes and everything was good. And then I talked to Tom for 10 minutes on the phone and then it was like all of a sudden a done deal. So like I said, it legitimately happened that fast. We had some brief communication, but then all of a sudden, like when it was just time for them to make their decision, I guess, like I made mine and we went on with it. So really, really happy to be here and excited for what we can do.
Definitely an interesting story there. The one thing that really stuck out to me was that you work out at Planet Fitness. So Tony automatically hates you now. So you're going to have to do something else.
I'm glad that Tanner takes his physical fitness and health seriously. That's important when you're racing these beasts of cars. And wherever you work out, even if they do have a clunk alarm or lunk alarm or whatever it's called, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I also work out at that Planet Fitness, so go. I don't know what their slogan is, but yeah. So Planet Fitness, yeah, you go there, that's great. But also I wanted to mention, that, you talked about in your first answer about, how these guys have some different equipment. The RPM chassis, HP engine is the combo that they use. And over your career, you've ran quite a few different chassis. Obviously, the 1A, when you drove that, was a Triple X. I think you told me the Tarleton car was a Maxim.
Yeah.
And now you run an RPM, which isn't a chassis that a ton of guys run. Brent Marks here switched to him recently and had really good success this year. But how different really is it when you get into these different chassis, like a Triple X or a Maxim and now an RPM? Does that actually take a lot of time to get used to it? Like, how did you feel this weekend at the World Finals as far as that goes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely does feel different. I think what's most important is having someone in your corner. So like having Sean Strasbaugh, he's been with this team now for, I think over 5 years. So that's really important because he knows the chassis, he knows the he has the combination, he has the notes. So it makes it a lot easier than when I come in versus when you are changing stuff and maybe if the crew chief or the team isn't on the same page as far as hasn't worked with that stuff before and you're all kind of going into it brand new, I think it makes it a much bigger challenge. But in this situation, like I said, Sean, he's been with this team for a while, so it definitely gets me up to speed a lot quicker. I think, like I said, it's mainly that. And then, like what they're doing with, shocks and their baseline setup and stuff. I think it's just tweaking it here and there to maybe, little things that I feel. I think every driver, wants the attitude of the car to feel a certain way. So as we get racing, if we can just kind of work on getting what I'm wanting to feel and what they're kind of close to and then getting that to match up, that's really the biggest deal. But definitely, yeah, from car to car, they all do feel different and it takes some time to get, like I said, what you want. And that's where it's really important now having some time this off season, even just to get me, where I want to sit in the car, feeling comfortable in the cockpit, all those little things so you feel at home. And then, allows you to take on that big schedule.
Chase, I just want to say thanks for clarifying the lunk versus the clunk alarm. I know that's probably what you set off a lot when you're working out at Planet Fitness. Tanner and I are just, we don't want you to beat us up and lift all those weights all over us. Tanner, I'll tell you one of the many great things about you, and I joke about it when I've interviewed you in the past. We talked about on the Drivers Project, but you are a stream of content, and that is really one of the big parts of your career. And I hope you know that I mean that in the sense of like you've done a great job cultivating a brand. You've done a great job bringing attention to the sport and to you and your partners. So, when we joke about content or when I joke about content, it's honestly just kind of praising you, and I hope you know that's the intent. So the best part about all your content for a guy in my position is it's very easy to do research on you, and I watched some of your videos today building up some notes for this interview, and in your video heading down to Charlotte, you talked about once you got into Charlotte Douglas and you were waiting on your seat to arrive, you were walking around baggage claim, and you mentioned that you were actually feeling kind of nervous going into this weekend. And I don't know if you're a guy that gets nervous before every race or before every bigger event, but I thought that was really interesting. You made it a point to bring that up. What was the reason behind the nerves? Is it looking down the road of going full-time racing with Book? What led into you kind of having a little bit of maybe extra nerves going into Charlotte and your debut in the Book 13?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like anyone. Obviously, you want to do a good job, and that's the best way to put it. I mean, you also are coming into a new job, as you could say, right? Like I've, been very accustomed to a lot of my career. I've driven my family's race car, which I think in that there is some major challenges, but there's also some comfortability. So now as I'm kind of now within the last, 2 years had some chances to drive for other teams, I think you just become more of a piece of the puzzle. And so you don't, in your own team, you are too, but, you don't want to let people down that, you maybe don't know as well. And you're starting to know better, right? As you spend more time with them. So yeah, I think a lot of the nerves just kind of, it's an unfamiliar situation and, you're wanting to become accustomed to it. I think also too, for me, like this is, again, like I got to race with Shark Racing, but I knew that was maybe just going to be kind of partial. Like it was, we completed it, was done, with Tarleton again, it was just another 30 races or so, a good schedule. But now this is kind of, I guess what you would say this would be like the first step of me completing my dream of wanting to be a really good national 410 driver. And this is my first chance to actually really get to do it. So in that sense, I guess it was probably this feeling of like, it's nerves, but it's also like, man, grateful to be here, like excited, like it's a mix of everything and you're having a hard time deciphering that. So yeah, no, it's going to be really good. And I know that, ahead there's going to be, some highs and a lot of lows too, because it's just really tough doing this. And it seems like it's getting tougher because there's so much competition and what High Limit is bringing to the table for us drivers. It's just increasing, like I said, 410 sprint car racing is on the rise. And so therefore, right, the best guys are coming out. So, yeah, just feeling ready, but, also know that there's a lot ahead and just trying to take it one step at a time.
Yeah, speaking of content, you and I go head to head in the content game on YouTube. I think you have a few more numbers than I do, but I put out a video when the whole Dason Pursley thing was announced that he was going to be going away from the 13 and put a whiteboard together of a bunch of drivers that could potentially get in that seat. And you were one of them, and Tom Boog ended up texting me and said, hey, what do you know about this guy? Or what's the story with this guy? And you were one of those guys that he had texted me about. And then when the announcement came out, I don't remember how many likes and whatnot you got on Facebook for your post, but last I saw it was like 2,000 or something crazy, right? And then Tom Boog texted me the next day and he's like, man, I think that kid broke the internet last night. And I was like, yeah, well, Tom, it turns out he's a pretty big deal last time I checked. But yeah, so that was cool. But, what, just in a broader sense, like what is it like now for you to be knowing that you are going to be one of the, this year we had, I think 29 guys were on the road full time doing this. What is it like knowing that you're going to be one of those guys next year?
Yeah, it probably hasn't completely set in yet, but again, yeah, just very exciting. Like I was looking and overwhelming too in a little bit of a way, right? Like I've seen the High Limit schedule and I was like, man, cause we're just used to, we go out, we race for a month, 5-6 weeks and then, we go back home, regroup or, our schedule has always looked a lot different, but now thinking of like, hey, like it's going to be awesome. We get to go to Florida, never been to Volusia. So that's going to be cool. Crossing that off my bucket list. I think of, once my truck and t-shirt trailer leaves for Vegas, like it probably isn't going to be back to the state of Oregon until we obviously swing through in August and then from there home at the end of the year. So yeah, it's just going to be awesome to get that chance to be on the road. And I think too, I'm just going to learn so much and probably a lot about life, right? There's just so much to it and also get to spend a lot of great time with all the High Limit people is even in, me being a partial member in the past, I noticed that there's a big family aspect here. And that's what also attracted me to the series and allowed me to, wanted me to jump on an opportunity like this to be a part of it. So I just like the direction that things are heading. And, for someone like me that does make content or is, in the game in that sense. And then also as a driver, like I want to be a part of, big things that are happening. So this all just lined up perfectly for, how it came together and look forward to getting things started in March.
Well, Chase brought up the content again, and I originally wanted to ask you, like, how nervous are you to have to go head-to-head with Chase Rodman on YouTube? And, you don't have to answer that right now as I try to get my lights to turn back on here and not do this completely in the dark. It's not working. Okay. But you talked about things you learned and things you'll learn on the tour this coming year. So I want to ask you in that partial deal that you got to run with Shark Racing and spend all that time with Bobby Allen. Can you pinpoint one or two things that you learned from racing with the Outlaws, with a program like Shark Racing, something that you didn't know about national competition that you picked up from running with those guys that you plan to make good on, that you plan to continue to develop on going into 2026 when you're on the road with High Limit?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing what's probably hard on the road, at least with the type of person that I am, is just how key it is to get in some sort of routine in your life, and then also with racing. So, every race day is kind of the same. And like I said, so it allows you to get in that rhythm. I feel like I've always been kind of a rhythm guy. And the main thing on the road is when you have those tough nights, it's easy to get so knocked down. And it's really, I don't know what it is. I think I've seen it with, so many different drivers, but when you're really on the road full time with the series, when you start having your struggles, it's harder to climb out of those slumps. So I think just kind of trying to set yourself up again so you can be in your rhythm and take on each race night, and then also be able to put the, hey, you have a bad night, like it's in the past and you're already moving forward. And I know you hear a lot of guys talk about it, but that's really what it comes down to. It's just, I think it's just easy to get beat up in your early years. And so yeah, I think that, and then also just, using your resources around you. I'm going to be around a lot of people that have been on the road. So if there's ever a situation where, talking to a guy or whatever, like, I think that's all super, super helpful because, you're around everyone that's been there and done it. So yeah, I know that's the main thing. I think just get in your rhythm and then, starting to figure out, I think as you go, what you learn, and then, reapplying it, because, there's some very aggressive parts of the schedule where I'll be doing, more racing than I've ever done before. So I think I'm also going to probably, see a new side of things that, again, like there'll be a lot more lessons in that, to keep, taking as I go forward.
Well, in the answer previous to that, you mentioned that your t-shirt trailer's probably not going to get back to Oregon for a long time after it goes out to Vegas. So this is kind of a 3-part answer here. Number one, it sounds like you're still going to be living in Oregon. You're not going to be moving out to the Midwest or anything like that, or to Pennsylvania. Number two, is Tara going to be in the t-shirt trailer at every race? And number three, and maybe the most important question I get asked in my YouTube comment section all the time, what the hell is Carly Holmes going to do next year? Because that is a bigger deal than you going full-time High Limit, I'm telling you.
That is big.
No, for sure. For sure. So yeah, I think for me, yes, I think I'm going to have my home base still being in Oregon. There's some of that still this off season I got to figure out. I think pretty much like for me being from the West Coast, I probably will live on the road more than some of these guys where they maybe have a chance to get home to Iowa or get home to PA or whatnot. I'm sure I'll be spending quite a bit of time at the Buick Motorsports shop. At the same time too, I probably will have some regiment where I try to fly home on weeks that make sense, every so many weeks or whatever, just to have some of that normalcy. I think sometimes you get too on the road, right? And then that's where, they can say it could break you, I guess, or whatnot. But, so yeah, I'll probably have something like that once I have a better idea on our full schedule as a team. And then as the t-shirt trailer goes, like, I'm sure, yes, you'll see my mom in it quite a bit. She's done a great job to, help elevate what I do and has been a big part of that. So, with this thing traveling everywhere, like, we're going to need someone to kind of help run that. And so that'll be cool. And then as far as Carly goes, I think she's still kind of figuring that out, but she knows that she wants to be on the road. And she's kind of been exploring, what those opportunities kind of look like. I know at one point she talked about even maybe trying to get back in the seat and, cause she still runs the Outlaw card and we still have obviously a bunch of sprint car stuff. So I think she had some of that, but then also, she also wants to keep pursuing, kind of what that path would be to becoming a crew chief in the sport. And I think that, she's on the way there, she can kind of do everything and learn has learned a lot of the different things. Like I even was talking to someone today about how Carly can weld and work on cars even in that sense and in some deeper areas than maybe some of these crew guys in the pit area, but just needs the experience obviously of learning what to do when and some setup stuff with the race car to really make the right calls. So yeah, she's still figuring that out. I think here soon she'll kind of be able to share it with everyone what she's doing.
I hope she breaks the news on Tanner Holmes' YouTube page. That would be very smart.
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree.
She would get the news out to a lot of people. I love it's always a good High Limit Room interview when Chase Rodman asks about drivers' moms. So I'm glad we've kept that kind of theme consistent here in 2025. Hey, you spend so much time focusing on your content like we've talked about. That's a huge part of you. And I don't know if you've ever gone into this in your videos. I'm guessing you probably have, but coming from someone who has done a little bit of what you've done as far as spending a lot of time in Adobe Premiere, presuming that's the software you use, and shooting video and editing and piecing together videos. Can you give the folks watching and listening a little bit of a look inside the Tanner Holmes YouTube, away from just driving, and maybe ballpark a little bit? How much time, goes into the content side of Tanner Holmes and your racing? Because I don't think people understand, if it's a 10-minute YouTube video, it doesn't take 10 minutes to shoot and 10 minutes to edit. A lot of time goes into it.
No, absolutely. I mean, and like talking here with all you guys, I mean, you guys understand it's kind of changed over time, but probably, I'm over 9 years deep into this. So the first, 8 or so years was pretty much just myself. And yeah, I mean, I would say, I feel like most of the moments that I'm awake, right? Or at least you're at least thinking about it. But yeah, I'm probably spending every bit of, almost 40 hours a week, on my racing and the channel, right? Like in some weeks is more one or the other. And obviously more than ever, the last 2 to 3 years, I've tried to just really focus on driving and what do I need to do to put more emphasis on that, to be the best I can be. So about, or this year, I actually was able to bring on, Matt, a filmer of mine. And so he's, I've been teaching him how to edit the videos and stuff, because I won't lie, after about 1,500 uploads, I probably did get a little tired. I wasn't as good as I could have been, because they're like, you get a little burnout on the editing's the hardest part, but the filming and the creativity and all that, I have a lot of fun with. And just trying to put stuff across all platforms. I think it's a game of obviously being the best at, like I said, filming and capturing what you're doing, but then also looking ahead at what is the future of content. It's its own thing, just like race car drivers are trying to focus on, or in crew chiefs, what's going to make our race car faster? How are things changing? What's the latest and greatest component, engine, this and that, wings? Well, in content, it's the same thing. What are the platforms? Where are people being reached at? So, it's its own full-time gig, basically. And so now that I have a little more help, we're trying to really continue to take that to the next level. But yeah, it takes, like I said, before I got talking to you guys, I'm making a list of things here, and I really just love it. Like I do. And I love how it goes hand in hand with my racing career, and they mutually benefit each other. That's the best part. So it kind of makes sense for, obviously both are very important and, have gotten me to where I'm at. My channel has helped me get some of the rides that I've gotten, just with the exposure in that thing. So, it's been a very, positive investment for me, and something I want to continue doing more than anything, just because I do really love it. And, I don't know what my life would have looked like without it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I, for one, hope to see a Rico Tanner collab next year at some point on the High Limit Tour. But this year was easily the best season of your career. You were up there pretty far in the earnings department on SprintCarRaydays.com. Second place run of Dirt Cup really obviously helped that. Had some extremely good runs early in the year with High Limit with the Tarleton car, and I want to say maybe it was Paris. You were right there battling for the lead and Navy blew a tire or something, but a bunch of top fives to start things off, and then you guys went to the Midwest and ran good as well. I think a top 10 at Attica with the Outlaws and whatnot. So just tell us about the 2025 season, because like I said, it was probably the best of your career and maybe what led you to this point and getting this call from Tom Boog.
Yeah, no, absolutely. 2025 was great. Obviously, a season where we raced as much as we did, you do have nights that don't go to plan, but early on we had a lot of speed with the 21 car. And, for whatever reason, I just felt super comfortable, right away. And I think a lot of that was working with the Drew Warner. And for people that know Drew, like, he's just a good dude. He's super easygoing to be around. Him and Nate they're super funny. They're just driving around in this black rig and we're going racing. Like, it's a cool situation to be a part of. So that was super neat. And I think that allowed me just to, really focus in on what my job was. And again, also, I came into it and there wasn't necessarily any crazy expectations. Obviously they just want you to go run hard and go try to win the race. It's pretty simple. So, that allowed us to win at Chico. And then, we ran good at Vegas with 2 flat tires, and then, went to honestly, to the Tulare Kern Paris weekend was one of the most surprising for me, just because Tulare, I won't lie, is a very intimidating track. So we ran well there, and then Kern we ran well, and then Paris we're competing for the win. So I just think too, those guys being from the area and at least running those tracks, again, that helps speed me up, because they had a good notebook on what, was needed for those places. And then, we continued to run well, won a race at Tulare, which again, actually 3 of my wins, I think this year were at Tulare, which was, crazy because that was a place that honestly had beat me up a lot in my career. So just getting in a good car helped a lot. And then transitioning the 18T, that was probably one of our toughest things was because, we kind of transitioned into another car halfway through the year when everyone's already been racing. You almost do kind of restart. So we had to battle through that a lot, but we did run second at Dirt Cup. We had, the decent run at Eldora, had some speed at Knoxville. So yeah, we just honestly had to fight really, really hard, with our family program, but I felt like we did well with what we had and kept building, on that, and then hop back in the 21 car and won a couple races too. So yeah, overall it was a great year. And, I definitely think it led me to the spot that I'm currently in. And I'm very thankful for Tarleton Motorsports. There's a lot of teams that maybe wouldn't have, they were encouraging me to find a good ride in the sense that there was the opportunity to move on. You don't have a lot of people like that where, like Drew Warner, who was, like I said, basically almost working the phones helping me. So, I just appreciate them for that because, it was just really cool. It was just really cool to have a team that not only backed me for the year, and if I was able to stay, they would continue to run me or be very happy to see me get something that, was a little bit bigger.
Tanner, my last question, the last thing I'm really thinking about is over the last couple of years that I've gotten to know you, I've learned a lot. I'd like to learn even more about your career. You've been doing the kind of pick your own, choose your own schedule thing now for quite a while. You've gone out and followed some tours through a few regions. You've gone out jogging in between races, been chased by stray dogs. You've worked with legends like Bobby Allen, guys that are really finding their footing and are doing great in Drew Warner, and you've hopped around between all these cars and stayed successful and fast in your family car. But you are now entering a part of your career, as you said earlier, that you've never been in before, a full-time national touring driver racing for someone that isn't your family. So what I guess I want to know is, what are you looking forward to most in 2026? And I'm not saying a spot on the schedule, a track we go to, a week of races. What's something about national racing that's always, caught your attention, you've daydreamed about, you fantasized about, that you're going to get to do in 2026 with High Limit, that you're really looking forward to and are excited to go national racing in order to get to go enjoy?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think really just going to try to take in, like, I get to be one of the guys. I get to be a driver, in a piece of these guys' puzzle, right? Like, I think I was, doing some research and whatnot, cause it's really cool. Like, the Boot Motorsports car's been around since 1999. And obviously they've went through some different variations of what their schedules have looked like, but really cool just to get to be a part of their puzzle. And for me, focus on, hey, what can I do to be the best possible sprint car driver? Because, like I said earlier, there is going to be a lot of those challenges. There's a lot of new tracks. There's a lot of different places, a lot of traveling. So yeah, I'm excited. I think more than anything, just for the challenge of myself and something that I've, always wanted to do. And I said, like, I'm young, like, now's the time to go try to do this. And again, just try to be the best that I can be. So yeah, I think, that part's really exciting. Just a lot of hard work over time to get here. And now, I'm excited for all the hard work ahead. Like I said, to be the best. And then also, I think it's really cool, like, with all the content that I have done, that my journey kind of gets to continue to be seen. So, and you can see kind of every episode from the beginning, cause we do try to show all the good and the bad. So just kind of continues my story of, what this step looks like, just like there was the step from karts to sprint cars and from local racing to, more regional and, the calls to get a couple rides. So, like, I'm excited for my story just to kind of continue and want to do my best to, kind of to do what I'm supposed to do.
You and I, all in with this, you and I have a very similar background. We both raced the same tracks. Obviously, you were a little bit better than me. But we were also employed technically by the same guy there for a long time. Jimmy Elledge, obviously, he hired you to run his outlaw kart, and you guys won a lot of big races. He hired me to go to the bathroom every 2 hours and get paid for it and pretend like I worked for 8 hours a day and come and go, sometimes work once a week. But, obviously that was a big moment in your career when Jimmy gave you that opportunity to run the factory QRC car. And that was your first big deal, right? And now you have this new big deal with Tom Book and this 13 car to go full time with High Limit Racing. What have you learned from Jimmy Elledge? For those that don't know, he was a crew chief in the NASCAR Cup Series for a long time. The first ever Cup race that Kyle Larson ran, Jimmy Elledge was the crew chief for, and he's been around a long time. And so I still talk to him the other day, and of course he answers the phone with "What up, cuz?" and then start talking from there. Right, that's his thing. Right, but what have you learned from him that you can now take into this much bigger role?
Gosh, I mean, really just so much. Like, that was my first chance to work with someone outside of my parents. And I still tell people, like, Jimmy has done the most for my career outside of my parents, just because he's committed to me for so long. And I think the main thing is, just the process of racing. I mean, put the most amount of time preparation before, he's really big on prep, whatever you got to do. I mean, obviously he's the one working on the cars and stuff, but, getting your engine package right, getting your car right, and doing everything. So when you show up to the track, you can be 110%. And then also, I think he taught me, though, a way of going about racing too, where obviously it's serious, but to just take each night with what it was. That was my first opportunity. So obviously I was extremely nervous. I wanted to go out there and win every night because I'm, thinking, man, I want to do the best I can so I don't get fired or so I have a great opportunity. Where with him, like I said, he just wanted me to go out and do my best, which ultimately, and what you do is that's all you can do, right? Is just go out there, focus on your job and do your best. And yeah, I mean, my third night out with him, I won, and the fourth night I flipped one lap down in a B main event. So like I got to do all ends of the spectrum and have that relationship and dealing with, what it was like to be a driver for a car owner and try to take care of the equipment and try to win races, be the best representation I could be. And so, yeah, I mean, through that, I just, like I said, and learn so much. And that's why I have fun and don't get to race for him much anymore, in the off season and stuff with my schedule, but, try to when I can. So yeah, that is, something I'm definitely most proud of and excited, when I get to just go do that, have fun, race some karts on the weekend, and remember kind of where I came from.
Well, Tanner, I know that when the news broke, I was very happy to see it. I'm genuinely excited for you to be on the road, but I'm also excited for High Limit as a series, to have you, hopefully a lot of your family and Buick Motorsports have such a solid effort going into it. I think you're going to be a great addition to the series, and I'm just really excited to get going and see what you can do on track as well as off of it when it comes to promoting your brand and the sport and the series. So this has been a lot of fun, and I know that everyone at High Limit is excited to have you on the tour next year.
No, thank you so much. I'm stoked to be with you guys. Hopefully plenty of front stretch interviews, and then actually front stretch interviews with both of you, hopefully at different points during the night. So look forward to the 66 races we have ahead and try to keep the 13 car up front.
That's Tanner Holmes. He's going for Rookie of the Year next season with High Limit Racing and Buick Motorsports 13.